What's going on, everyone? It is the Derv, and this is the third and possible final iteration of builds surrounding super spam using Crown of Tempest. This one, of course, we're going to be going with our Strand Super, and it is no different than the ones before. It is an absolute baller in the right situation, and this build, I think, is going to be received very well, especially for those who love seeing a lot of green buddies all over the screen. This build will give you a lot of orbs of power. It will give you some insane burst DPS. It can be customized with virtually any weapon setup depending on chance that you might need to come in contact with. And also, you get to look really cool. So, I will leave it up to you guys if you want me to do the other two elements, but otherwise, I'm going to move on after this video with other different builds. Let me know in the comments. Hopefully, you guys like this build. Let's get it going.
Yeah, boy!
A quick caveat before we get started. If you guys want me to go through the last two elements that I haven't touched on yet, that being arc and stasis, let me know in the comments or get at me in my Discord, and I can full on customize this style of play to fit the final two elements a little bit better than what we've done for Song of Flame and Nova Bomb, and now, of course, Needlestorm. So just a quick caveat, if you guys want me to do the final two elements, that's cool. I will do them, and I will get them out ASAP. If you want me to move on to other things or other characters, let me know that as well. Okay, so moving on. Our super of choice for this iteration of the build, of course, is going to be Needlestorm. Conjure a hail of deadly woven needles. After embedding themselves in the environment, the needles will reweave into a host of threadlings. Threadlings you create will return to you and perch if they can't find any nearby targets. Damaging targets with your weapons or melee will send out perch threadlings to attack. So a couple of things. You're going to get some residual damage opportunities given the style of play that you guys, if you've seen the last two videos, already kind of know how this is going to go. We're going to be spamming our melee, but it's going to be a different form of melee. We're going to use that to get our super back as fast as possible, which with Needlestorm is still one of the best supers in the game. Maybe not the most powerful anymore, but with the threadlings that are left over afterwards, it's still worth putting in the top tier of supers in general for Warlock. For abilities, we're going to go with Healing Rift, Burst Glide, Arcane Needle, and Storm Grenade. Storm Grenade is great because we're going to be jolting targets with it, which is of course going to give us back additional ability energy, and it's an additional way to generate melee energy. Arcane Needle, we're going to take advantage of the stacks that we can generate, up to 3 specifically, and that is going to be our main source of super regeneration. For aspects, number 1 on the list, if you've seen the previous videos, you already know where we're going with this. Lightning Surge. While sliding, activate your charge melee ability to blink forward, calling down lightning strikes that jolt targets as you rematerialize. Targets that are hit by lightning strikes grant you stacks of bolt charge. Lightning Surge is going to be, of course, how we get our super back as quickly as possible. As we mod, or as we continue to go through this build, you'll see with the basic mods that we have, as well as our exotic armor of choice, you can pretty much bank on getting a super, every 30 to 45 seconds, 60 seconds at an absolute maximum, and that is if you are really not seeing hardly any enemies, or you're basically doing no damage at all. But this build is going to require you to be aggressive. Lightning Surge is the catalyst to making you as aggressive as possible. Next up, we have Feed the Void. Defeat a target with any ability to activate Devour. Your Devour effects are improved, restoring additional health and grenade energy. So I'm not going to be worried about getting my grenade back because with Devour, it's going to take care of it for me. Add to that the ability of having amplification and bolt charge, and on top of that, we're going to get additional health back for every kill, and we can also extend this with any kind of final blows. Final blows restore health, grant grenade energy, and extend Devour. So these two are going to be your numero uno combination for this style of play. For fragments, first up on the list is going to be Facet of Purpose. Picking up an orb of power grants either bolt charge, restoration, frost armor, woven mail, or overshield based on the damage type or of your equipped super. Because we are running Needlestorm, we are going to be getting Woven Mail. Your body is encased in a protective mesh of tightly woven strand matter, greatly reducing any incoming non-precision damage. Now, Unless something has changed, I believe the damage reduction is somewhere right around 30%. You guys can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but that's going to be huge. The more aggressive we are, the more resistance we need. That's just the way it goes. And unlike the other two, I think Woven Mail is still one of the better ones to have if you're going to be in the immediate vicinity of exploder units, for example, or just, gobs of enemies in general, or possibly beefier enemies. Thinking some of the harder Cabal enemies for this Nightfall that we're currently running. Either way, I think Woven Mail is, certainly great, but for this style of play, it's even better because you want the resistance in general. Next on the list, we're going to go with Facet of Balance. Rapidly defeating targets with light damage grants melee energy. Rapidly defeating targets with darkness damage grants grenade energy. No explanation here really needed. Just make sure you guys are cycling through your abilities as well as your weapons periodically in case you do run low on any of the ability energy that you might need. Next up is Facet of Sacrifice. While you have an Arc Solar or Void buff, ability Final Blows grant bonus Darkness Transcendence energy, plus 10 to Discipline. The way that this is going to kind of play is you're going to be generating a lot of light energy, and you're going to be able to use your weapon, your main weapon of choice, to generate darkness transcendence energy. So the style of play, once you pop your transcendence, is you can spam your lightning surge to get your super back even quicker, since it's going to be regenerating faster than when you are not in transcendence. So while you guys are playing, once you get transcendence, or once you get it full, if you have a full super, go ahead and use your full super and then use your transcendence to get your super back faster, and basically do a back-to-back super cast, if that makes sense. Facet of Awakening. Rapidly defeating targets with light or darkness damage or super final blows generates an elemental pickup of matching damage type, plus 10 resilience, so we'll take that every time. And because we are running Needlestorm, we are going to be generating Tangles, a knot of strand matter swirling with potential. Tangles can be shot and destroyed or picked up and thrown. Dealing damage to feeding targets afflicted by any strand debuff will unwind them and create a tangle. The other thing we're going to be generating is we are going to be generating Ionic Traces, a bolt of pure arc energy that travels along the ground seeking towards its creator. When picked up, Ionic Traces grant ability energy. So two different ways to deal with additional elemental pickups. So the Ionic Traces, of course, are going to give you your ability energy back faster, which is going to make you able to generate more ability energy better. The Tangles, which we're going to be generating from our main Add Clear weapon, as we'll get to here in a second, is going to give us the ability to do additional tick damage. And of course, any targets afflicted by any strand debuff will unwind them to create a tangle, thereby giving us an additional way to just pick up and basically throw a little mini bomb into a group of enemies to continue the carnage. You don't get any orbs of power from throwing tangles and killing enemies, but it doesn't really matter. People will understand the process. Last but not least, we're going to have Facet of Dominance. Your Void Grenades weaken targets, and your Arc Grenades jolt targets. Minus 10 to Discipline, which I don't like, but in the event that you do find yourself lower on the discipline scale, you may find yourself needing to go refarm your armor, or maybe just switch up some of your mods. If you don't want Facet of Dominance, if you don't care about the Arc Grenades jolting targets, you can absolutely, with this build, put on Facet of Daunt. Powered melee hits against targets makes you radiant. Powered melee final blows makes you and nearby allies radiant. This would probably be a good one to use if you're going to be running a higher end Nightfall, possibly even a GM. Again, I always encourage people with GMs to run the surges. With the amount of builds that I've put out, there's no shortage of possibilities for the different surges that we'll see week to week. But in the event that you want to have Radiance procced at pretty much any given time, this will pair great with Lightning Surge since we're going to be spamming it so much. Of course, the Old Faithful would be Facet of Protection if you want to throw that on. If you're not running higher end content, this might be a great way to boost some of your stats you see in the lower left-hand column. Without Facet of Dominance, of course, I get my discipline back and I get an additional 10 to strength on top of it. So those would be the three I would recommend if you don't want to use Facet of Dominance. Or I guess I should say those would be the three I'd recommend, and those other two would be what I would substitute if you don't want to use Facet of Dominance for this build. For our stat distribution, I recommend focusing on resilience, strength, and discipline in that order. The discipline we don't completely care about as much as we do strength and resilience, simply because we want to regenerate our super as fast as possible, which means we need to make sure that we have our melee as high as possible. Of course, it does us no good if we have our melee at a T10 and our resilience is lacking, because with the aggressive style of gameplay that we have, it's going to prove to be difficult to be able to continue being alive if we're constantly getting bombarded, because we're constantly throwing ourselves into groups of enemies. So get your resilience up, then your strength, and then your discipline. The stat that I would probably tell you doesn't matter the most, as long as you have it at T3 or higher, would be the intellect. Mobility, of course, doesn't really matter in this since you're going to constantly be amplified. And the rift is nice to have, but if your recovery is kind of low like mine, I don't really find myself missing out on rift energy. And honestly, we're talking about a 1 and 22 second cooldown. It's really not the end of the world, because at a T4, it's even lower than that. For weapons, I'm going to go through different options for the kinetic, energy, and heavy. With this build, you are virtually going to be able to swap in and out weapons of your choice. I'm just going to put what I used in the video, or the intro video that you guys saw, and just kind of go through the different options. You guys can pretty much pick how you want to do it. The goal of this build is to super spam. So the weapons, even though they are important in terms of your ability to kill enemies, they're not as important in terms of generating super energy. So just keep that in the back of your mind. So just mod your weapons for whatever activity you need for champs, and let your lightning surge carry you the rest of the way to get your super back. In the kinetic slot, I recommend borrow dyad. I go with Taken Ambition and Target Lock, but I know a lot of people love Hatchling, and that's perfectly fine too if that's what you want. If you don't want to use an exotic in this slot, my number one suggestion would be Mero Mago. With Pugilist and Hatchling, you get your melee energy back every time you get a kill with this, and simultaneously you're generating darkness damage or darkness transcendence energy, because this is a darkness subclass. But if you are just looking for another good ad clear option, Rufus's Fury, another old faithful, I guess I should say, since I already said that earlier. Demolitionist and Hatchling, a staple in a lot of Rufus Fury builds, and this one's no different. I only have a measly 20,000 kills with this thing. It wrecks, and it still is just as good as when it came out initially. If you are modding for champs, I recommend probably using your barrier pierce in here in the kinetic slot. For those, I'd recommend the Call or Mikkel's Reverence. And the reason I say it should be barrier in here is because if you are facing all three champs, it's probably easiest to roll with overload in the heavy slot. But either way, just mod however you guys want. It doesn't really quite matter as much with the weapons, not like some of my other builds where I strongly recommend one over the other. In the energy slot, I'm going with Lotus Eater, Beacon rounds, and Destabilizing rounds. Both good options, but you guys can put whatever you want. If you want other possibilities, if you're dealing with other champs, if you don't want to use your exotic in the kinetic, you can absolutely use Telesto in the energy. Telesto is an awesome weapon. If you haven't picked it up in a while, go ahead and put it on, and make sure you mod your artifact accordingly. For other options, you can use Barrier Piercing with Embraced Identity. Of course, you can go with Indebted Kindness for a sidearm option if you want, and you have no shortage of fusion rifles. The Nether Afterlife or Afterlight is good. Pugilist and Reservoir Verse is a combo I would recommend. Plug One, I just had this on there just to say it's a viable option. You, of course, can farm this from Vanguard in Zavala with Zavala engrams. So don't feel like I'm not even going to entertain what the perks are on this, because it's not what I'd really use anyways. And then last but not least, good old Iterative Loop from Neptune. That's going to be a good one. Compulsive Reloader with Volshot, just another way to be able to generate lightning at a target location. And then the Nanotech Tracer Rockets, always welcome additional tick damage. But whatever you guys want to use, honestly, is totally fine. This is just what I ran with in that intro video. Last but not least, I am recommending Cynosure. Cynosure with Reconstruction and Explosive Light absolutely wrecks. If you have not tried it, I recommend trying to farm with at least Reconstruction and Explosive Light. And then my recommendation for the magazine would be the Alloy Mag. I don't have this on this, so if I do end up dropping one, I will absolutely swap this one out for the one with Reconstruction, Explosive Light, and the Alloy Mag. But as I'm sure you're aware, we can use a number of substitutes. Because this is an instant burst super, we can absolutely put on Microcosm, and we can also take advantage of the Paracausal Imbuement. The Paracausal Imbuement gives you bonus damage once your super ends, and since it's an insta burst super damage, Microcosm pairs beautifully with this, just like it did with the Nova Bomb video that I gave you not that long ago. But if you already used up your exotic and you want some other options, you can roll with Promemoria, you can roll with Crowning Dual Log, you can go with Commemoration, Retrofit, Faithkeeper, and if you want to use another exotic option, yes, shout out to Truth. You don't see that in many videos anymore, but I'm telling you, Truth still hits. You can see 108 enemies killed. I'm not using this thing to kill champs or anything like that, really. I mainly use it on boss DPS, but I'm telling you, Truth still wrecks. I haven't used it this season. Well, I've used it, but I haven't leveled it up to 2010 or whatever. But either way, you have an absolute variety of options in all these slots. But in the video you saw, this combination that I had, of course I was running a Nightfall, worked very, very well. The combination of Void and Strand damage worked very well. Destabilizing rounds paired very well. And of course Borrowed Dyad, if you know, you know. Never going to really say anything bad about it, which is ironic because when it first came out I thought it was pretty horrible. So anyways, moving on. Okay, Crown of Tempest. We're going to go right into it. Conduction times. While you have an arc ability equipped, arc ability or jolt final blows increase the recharge rate of your abilities and extend the duration of storm trance. Now, because we are running prismatic, all you have to have is one arc ability. We accomplish that by rolling with the arc grenade, the storm grenade. So while we have that ability equipped, any arc ability or jolt final blows increase the recharge rate of all the rest of our abilities. So you'll see a ticker on the side that says conduction times X, whatever, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or whatever it is. While you have that, you are going to be getting corresponding ability energy recharged to your abilities. So you can be using Lightning Surge and generating melee energy back to you at the same time. So you're never theoretically going to run out unless you absolutely just purposefully spam it without taking like a 2 or 3 second break. And yes, I'm literally saying if you don't break for 1, 2, or 3 seconds occasionally, yeah, you're going to run out of melee energy. But with conduction times at its peak, that's going to be pretty hard to do. Most raids that are ad dense, onslaughts, of course, Court of Blades, no shortage of enemies there. And then, nightfalls and things like that. Or if you're just running general content, I'm telling you, you're not going to run out of melee energy. And we're going to further take advantage of that melee energy with our mods. I would recommend whatever your main ad clear mod is, put that as the Siphon. The reason being is that's the weapon you're going to go back to when you're either low on ability energy or it's not really appropriate to be using abilities because either they won't work quite right or whatever, or you don't quite have your super yet, but you just want to be able to kill some of the enemies that are in front of you. Put the Siphon mod on that you are going to be using that weapon specifically the most to kill as many enemies as you possibly can. Don't worry about not having a Siphon mod on for your energy or your, I guess I should say, your champ dealing weapons, because those are for champs and DPS. The main bulk of the work is going to come from having 2 mods of hands-on. Gain bonus super energy on melee kills. When you multiply this by 2, the amount of melee energy that comes through is absolutely ridiculous. Go to your favorite strike, go to your favorite planet, go do a public event somewhere, put 2 hands mods on, and then just see whatever your build is, try it. And then once you put on Crown of Tempest and you have that on, you're basically like double backing on the ability energy that you're getting back, because you're going to be able to reduce your super cooldown to as little as 25 to 30 seconds, maybe even less, depending on how dense the ads are and or if you are by yourself or really the only one doing any work in your fire team, which if you are, I wouldn't be surprised because you are moving around very fast with this build. To compensate for using 9 energy here, I'm going to have to recommend you go on with a minor mod in the general armor mod. Of course, you can compensate a little bit for that by making the Artifice armor mod available. So go ahead and farm that exotic cipher from Xur this week and get it done. For the gauntlets, pretty simple and straightforward. We're going to roll with 3 heavy-handeds and a minor general armor mod. The 3 heavy-handeds, we can get an orb of power every 1 second that passes. So use your Lightning Surge. wait a second, literally, and then use another lightning surge. You will generate virtually unlimited orbs of power this way, which will again help you reduce your super cooldown and get you additional ability energy back, which we'll get to here on the rest of the armor. The only downside is, of course, we only have 10 energy to work with, so you got to go with another minor mod here. So if it's the difference between getting a T7 and a T6, go down with the T6 because the orb should help you boost your ability energy rate recharge up anyways. So are you really missing out if it's like an extra 5 seconds, 10 seconds? I don't think you are. For the chest armor, go ahead and put on whatever reserve mod you need for the heavy of your choice. Since I have strand, I'm using strand, but whatever you decide to pick, go ahead and use that. Put on 2 elemental resistance mods, and then this would be the first situation in which you can put a 4 energy cost major mod onto your general armor mod slot. So if you are lacking resilience, this is the first piece of armor that I think you'll be able to overcompensate for to get your resilience back to where it is, or even your recovery. Like let's say your recovery's at T2. Hey, that's probably not good, even if you're not really dependent on your riff. You still want your health back. So use this piece of armor to get to where you need to be on some of the more expensive modifications. For the legs, I'm going to go ahead and roll with at least 1 absolution and 1 invigoration. Now, the final mod here, I have Innervation, which is for your grenade cooldown. However, if you are running a Nether Arena activity, you may want to swap that out with Recuperation. You see on here, I have a 4 energy mod equipped in the General Armor mod, and I still have 1 available, which means if you want to do something like Restoration, you can do that. If you want to do something... let's say you want to drop the, let's say you only need a 3 mod here and you drop this, you can still, or you put a 3 mod on here, you drop one of these. Actually, you can probably just, you'll have 2 available. So yeah, you can put double absolution on if you have a 3 energy modification on that general armor slot. So yeah, virtually a lot of different options. You could also drop this if you have a, general armor mod cost of 3 energy or less, and you can go on with a weapon search for your heavy ammo option. So whether that's strand or void or, arc or solar or stasis, I don't really think it's going to be stasis or solar given the meta for this year, but you could theoretically put on a kinetic weapon surge if you're running microcosm. However you need to do it to get the most bang for your buck, go ahead and do it. Last but not least is going to be the Warlock Bond. Go ahead and put on your Reaper, so that way after you use your class ability, your next weapon Final Blow spawns an Orb of Power. That's a free Orb of Power, just take it. And then of course when you're using your class ability, you reduce your melee cooldown when you put on Outreach. Go ahead and throw on a Font of Restoration so you can regenerate health as much as possible, as well as your Rift. 1 Orb of Power gives you 30, and then it maxes out at 60 at 3 orbs. So... for those who didn't know that, and also shout out to the individual that corrected me. I think I said 35 before. It is 30 plus 30 to your recovery with your first Orb of Power. Go ahead and unlock your Artifice Armor mod if you have it and haven't used it yet, and whatever general armor mod you need to get you to where you need to be. For the artifact, I'm going to go over what I have on the screen. It's going to make sense, those who have messed with their artifact over the long season that we've had here. And you are probably going to be able to figure out how to switch it up a little bit depending on what weapons you decide. In the first column, of course, I've got the piercing sidearm. Since I'm running a sidearm, I don't want to have to worry about barriers popping up and not being able to deal with them unless I pick up an Orb of Power and have unraveling rounds. I do have the Overload Trace Rifles just because I was experimenting with Microcosm in this build. If you are running with Microcosm, you're going to want to put Overload Trace Rifles on. Unstoppable Rocket Launcher. I like the Rocket Launcher for the Unstoppable option more than the Fusion Rifle, but of course, if you do go with Fusion Rifle, make sure you select that at the top of this column. In the second column, since we are running a strand heavy build as far as weapons and our super, I do recommend putting on Vile Weave as well as Unraveling Orbs. In the third column, I'm going to recommend putting on Dielectric, along with Photonic Flare. Defeating an exhaust or sever target with arc damage releases a blinding burst. Now, exhaust is applied by disrupting combatants or by weapons with the Psycho Hack or Subjugation origin traits. Because I was messing around with trace rifles, and the ability to stun overload weapons like that can stun overloads, Photonic Flare is probably the winner here. But you can make an argument for throwing this up to hold the line if you're rolling with the machine gun. You can, of course, if you're doing a lot of activities that have taken in, you can put the disruptors or the King's Vestige on. But I do recommend the Elemental Siphon because rapid final blows with a kinetic weapon or a weapon matching your equipped super create an elemental pickup that matches your equipped super, and that would be your tangles. So if you have tangles forming and you're not taking advantage of Elemental Siphon, that's on you. Switch it up and get it done. If you boost this, your elemental pickups grant matching super energy when they are collected. So yes, that means when you pick up a tangle or you shoot a tangle, that gives you a little bit of super energy back. Now, is it going to be a full minute off your super cooldown? No, but every little bit helps. And when you're going a million miles an hour because you're constantly amplified, hey, why not take some free gimmies that the game is giving you? In the fourth column, we're going to go with Flashover as well as Horde Shuttle. Horde Shuttle, no brainer, damaging unravel targets with a weapon, occasionally spawns with Threadling, and when you boost this, Threadling sever targets that they damage. Flashover, no brainer. When you get maximum bolt charge, you also become amplified. Lightning bolts deal more damage. Since we are spamming Lightning Surge, it only makes sense to put Flashover on. These two are going to work in tandem with how often we are going to be spamming Lightning Surge, and there's going to be Lightning Storms basically all over the battlefield. As soon as you get that bolt charge, you're in. The next thing you do is going to cause that lightning bolt, whether that's weapon damage, ability damage, anything out there is going to cause that. And the lightning bolts deal more damage. Last but not least, we're going to go with heavy ordnance regeneration because we are using a rocket launcher, or at least I am in this build, and limit break. Casting a super while you're critically wounded or have an elemental buff matching your super element grants a period of increased super damage. So if you have Woven Mail and you cast your super, you will have increased super damage with limit break. This is a no-brainer. If you pair this, for example, with Microcosm, like I was telling you earlier, you get additional super damage and then you get the Microcosm buff after the super damage is over. So you win twice simply by having limit break if you're running Microcosm. You could make the argument to put on 2 shreds, but since we are spamming Lightning Surge, the likelihood that we are going to be dealing sustained damage to severed targets long enough for this to really even matter, probably pretty slim to none, and the rest of these aren't really going to matter unless you care that much about Defibrillating Blast. You are doing enough to generate tons of jolt as well as bolt charge in general with this style of play, so I don't think Defibrillating Blast is really going to, I don't think it's going to really add anything to your life. And Elemental Supercharger and Particle Reconstruction. Particle Reconstruction, if you are running with a fusion rifle, go ahead and put that on. If you are curious about Elemental Supercharger, I don't really think it's going to matter. You know, I think your best 2 plays here are going to be the Heavy Ordnance or at least your Limit Break. So one of the reasons I think you should try this build, number one, if you've tried the other 2 builds, the Nova Bomb and the Song of Flame spam, you know, why wouldn't you want to try this? Get your Needlestorm back as fast as possible. Those who love casting their supers are going to love builds like this. I wish I had known I could, you know, generate my super back even faster way back in the day when I started playing by doing, you know, things like modding my armor and all these other, you know, little tidbit quality of life things that I'm now, you know, hoping that everyone picks up on, you know, by watching these videos. But I mean, Needlestorm is fun. It really is, especially when you, like in the Quarter Blades, when you have a bunch of Shriekers that you're firing at, that Needlestorm will hit 3 or 4 of the Shriekers and do significant damage of them. If you have, you know, the Needlestorm active, when you have 2 Shriekers, you know, throwing their, you know, their bullets at you, you can throw this Needlestorm at them, clear them out, and then, man, you don't have to worry about, you know, Hellfire raining down on you. I think that is, you know, a huge quality of life thing that Needlestorm does offer for you. And because you are regenerating it so fast, you're not really that hurt by using it during times where you might not normally think to pop your super. Especially if you're in any kind of semi-busy activity. If you like Needlestorm, if you like having perched Threadlings, if you like your little green buddies doing additional tick damage, and you are taking advantage of the artifact, Needlestorm is the way to go. And it's been the way to go for a while for some folks out there. And I'm not going to ever say anything bad about it. Yes, you can switch up your weapons to fit however you want, okay? I understand that what I have on the screen would not be considered meta, so to speak, but just think about it in the terms of what we're trying to do and how we're trying to do it. This is obviously modded for the Nightfall, surges. But if you're taking this into a raid and you want to switch this up because you know how you're getting your super back, but you know that you're going to be facing a swirly boss, for example, you're not going to be using a rocket launcher. Go use a freaking machine gun. Go use Queensbreaker or something like that, or Microcosm. A rocket launcher won't work, especially one without tracking. However, if you're rolling with this build and you're going into a lost sector, you'll do fine. You will do fine. You've got 2 champs, accounted for, but if it is overloads that day, hey, you can switch this out for Pro Memoria and your life basically doesn't change. So this is probably one of the more flexible builds that I've made in recent memory. Of course, you can make that argument for the last 2 builds that I came out with, but I think this one probably is truly more flexible than the other 2, because the other 2 were kind of playing off of each other. And especially with the Song of Flame one, because we're already rolling with solar, we're using Dragon's Breath and pairing that with solar. There's not really like something you can pair with Needlestorm. It's not like you buff on buff or debuff on debuff. So this one is, you have a lot more flexibility. Anyways, if you guys did find anything helpful in this video, please consider liking and subscribing. If you know a Guardian out there who would like a build like this or who could benefit from a build like this, please send them my way or share this video with them. My goal, of course, is to always help as many people as possible. Also, if you guys are looking for a non-toxic gaming community, I highly recommend hopping into my Discord. We got a lot of great people in there. A lot of people willing to offer their time and help and, whatever knowledge they have from the game to help you accomplish everyday activities or specific, triumphs and activities like that. It's just a really great group of people. And I wouldn't have a non-toxic gaming community to even offer anyone watching this video right now if it wasn't for the people that are already in it, being cool, being patient, offering whatever help that they can offer when they can offer it. So if you're looking for that non-toxic gaming community, my Discord is open. I'm very interactive in there as well as them. So I'm going to switch over. I'm just going to roll one clip for you guys and then call it a day with this video. So, all right, let's switch it over. So what I decided to do to cap this video is actually run through the entire final boss fight of the current Nightfall. No, this is not a GM. This is more of just a demonstration above anything else, but just kind of seeing how it's going to work. One of the things that I want to point out is because of your aggressive style of play, if you have a rocket launcher that has explosive light on it, remember, explosive light does not deteriorate over time. So you're always going to have, explosive light times 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or whatever. It's not going to be just a basic rocket launcher round that you're going to be using on whatever enemies you need to use on. Because we're constantly spamming lightning surge, we're going to be picking up those orbs of power simply because, we're going to be running over them. So you're always going to have bonus DPS to that rocket launcher that I was talking about. Even, if you don't think it is the greatest weapon, option, it's still going to put out more damage than just a regular rocket launcher. It's going to put out equivalent, if not a little bit more than one with reconstruction and bipod for reference. So I wanted to point that out. If that wasn't something that you noticed in the intro video, which I'm not even sure if I really even had an opportunity for you to see that, but anytime you pull that rocket launcher out, you're going to get bonus DPS. So the reason I also wanted to show this finale, so to speak, is I wasn't quite playing the objective. I was more so trying to clear the battlefield for my teammates who weren't as aggressive as I was during this run. So in doing that, they were able to get to do the mechanics, which again, it's not really like it's rocket science, but it's just a way you can be kind of the catalyst to your fire team. Anyways, guys, hopefully you guys like this video. Let me know in the comments if you want me to do the other 2 elements. I will see you guys next time. Take care.